Live from the internet, this is the Crystal Chronicles, your Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia podcast. Welcome to episode 77, recorded this Thursday, November 14th, 2019. I am your host, Mark, and I am joined by my co-host. First, his name is, if he can hear me, Mino Spellgood. How you doing, Mino?
Hey, Mark. Stressful 2 weeks. So I'm drinking extra heavy tonight. Let's see how it turns out.
What are you drinking tonight, Mino? The people want to know.
2 shots of Maker's Mark in, and I'm mixing Coke with whiskey right now. Yeah.
Very nice. It's a delicious drink. And I'm also joined by our other co-host. His name is Kreese, a.k.a. Zerink. Kreese, how you doing? What are you drinking?
I am doing okay. I'm trying to keep warm because a cold front came through earlier this week, and it's been getting close to freezing, which is unusual for Louisiana. I am drinking a Coke Zero.
And I am drinking delicious Canada Dry in honor of our founder, Pierre. Pierre, hope you're doing good. He is doing good. I do talk to him. Anyway, welcome. All of you joining us live on Twitch. We love to have you here. We record live every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central. All of you joining us on video on demand, on YouTube, and on our various podcast apps and services, or on our website, tccpodcast.com. We do welcome you all. Remind you to check us out, join our Discord, and continue the conversation during the week. So let's move into the conversation of the day, which is Defo. We had a little bug in the game where the co-op text to for friends to join or friends, people, I forget which exactly thing it was, but it was showing up in Japanese. The actual language on the screen was Japanese instead of English for the English version of the game. I don't know if you play in French or some other languages, if it was showing up in Japanese too, but that is fixed. So that's not a problem anymore. We did get an announcement that Leviathan Ultimate is coming. We did know that from the stream earlier this month. So that is coming out very soon, next week. We also had a global first costume, I believe that's correct. Garland has his kind of light armor costume, and that is available.
I think Oh, go ahead. Finish that, Mark. Sorry.
No, it is available in a gem bundle with 9,000 gems. So, yeah, what were you going to say?
I need to fact check if we got it first. I think we slightly did, but JP got it on the LC.
They got it on the LC.
That just dropped in JP. Yeah, right. So this is like almost a simultaneous costume release, which is really nice. I think technically we might have gotten it a few days early.
Yeah, we only got it yesterday, so if they got it any sooner,
okay, never mind.
Either way, we got it about the same time.
Yeah.
All right.
One thing I want to note about the join text, join co-op text being in Japanese, I don't pay attention to it, so I didn't even notice during that period of time it was in Japanese.
Yeah, no. So it was the join if you were hitting like a join a friends co-op, that was popping up in Japanese. Yeah, I didn't notice it all.
I noticed, guys.
I saw screenshots of it.
I read every painstakingly written and translated word in this game as out of appreciation for the devs.
And Square Enix Joshua in chat is clarifying the costume was announced first for global, but Japan didn't get it first.
Oh, cool. Okay, cool. Thanks for the clarification.
We found out about it first, but we obviously did get it sooner than Japan did in the game timeline. They are getting it with Garland's LC. We got it with Garland's event, which has happened with others, other things too. So
I love the early costumes. By the way, I buy them all. They're great. I'm worried that if we keep getting these early costumes, if they introduce the ingot bundles with Mog Pass early, I'm going to be spending way too much money a month on this game. It's already 2 costumes a month. And I don't even count anymore. It's just any new costume I'll pick up. Ugh.
And there is also weekly gem sales, so make sure to bundle up on your gems. I have not bought my Garland costume yet. I certainly will do that. And I actually didn't because we only had one new costume last month, so I'm kind of down on my gem count. So that brings us to the first event we had. We had two new things going on this week. The first was Fang's Lost Chapter, Fangs of Promise. So that brings back the character from Final Fantasy XIII, whose name is Fang. And Fang gets a rework, an EX weapon, an EX Realization, and some other things. So let's start with Fang herself, and our friend Kreese, who did pull for Fang, I believe, is going to talk about...
I did pull.
About Fang. So go ahead, Kreese. Tell us everything we need to know about Fang.
Okay, so if you guys remember from when Fang first arrived, she's a kind of mixed offensive debuffer, launcher. She has some interesting gimmicks where her first ability, Umbral Vice, applies several debuffs to the enemy, and she hits harder against debuff targets while she is in Saboteur stance after using Umbral Vice. Whereas her second ability, Whirlwind, turns her to Commando stance. She hits harder, she has higher attack. And if she breaks her primary target or hits her primary target while it is broken, then she initiates a chain attack. So she was pretty versatile in that she could do two different roles pretty effectively. Her downside being that she just didn't hit very hard, and she had limited ability uses and no way to prolong that with no EX weapon. Her rework has changed it so that her crystal strength passives are now stronger. She gets more attack and max brave just from being buffed. She has slightly better stats after initiating a chain attack from her passives now. They last longer, so she can maintain them longer without having to rely on chain attacks so frequently. And her extension passives have made it so that her abilities hit harder. Umbral Vice now is 3 hits instead of 1. It hits a lot harder than it did before. And it also always triggers an HP attack. So you no longer have to worry about getting to 80% max brave, and it has brave overflow. Whirlwind is now much harder hitting. It's an AoE brave hit followed by a single target HP hit. It can brave overflow, and it's just stronger in general now. So it's a lot easier to get that break if you need to trigger the chain attack, which is pretty nice. And Fang has a new additional ability, which really, I think, cements her power. It's HP damage up all, I think is what it's called. For 3 turns after Fang activates it, all HP damage dealt by the party is increased. If you bloom it and extension it, she has 3 uses of this, and it extends all party damage by 20%, while also raising her own attack. Someone's asking in chat if Fang's additional ability was considered a bug in release in Japan. And my understanding, Mino, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, was that it was supposed to just increase damage dealt during chain attacks,
HP damage,
and it was broken. But they kept it the same after the bug was realized, so we just got the version that clearly states that it just increases all HP damage. So bloomed and extension equipped, she can extend the party's HP damage for 9 total turns, basically, which is pretty nice. It can stack with Charlotta, so if you bring Charlotta and Fang along, it's 40% additional HP damage on all attacks, which is very strong if you time it properly.
Somebody made a great point that while it's technically 9 turns, it's 6 turns for other teammates because she's always going to activate the first turn of her AA, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Because Fang will always burn her first turn of the AA on her turn after that. That is true. Another thing to note is that Fang also got a new unique buff that can stack up to 5 levels. Each level increases Fang's speed and max brave by a set amount. I believe up to 50% max brave increase and speed increase. And it also is a small debuff aura that decreases all enemies' speed by a small amount, sort of like how Sephiroth works. Sort of like how Genova works, so keep that in mind. Along with that, Fang also got a new EX ability from her EX weapon called High Wind, which is an AoE brave plus single target HP attack that can brave overflow. It can increase the level of Fang of transgression if it is not at max. Becomes a plus version where it just hits a lot harder. This is a pretty nice ability. It's on a normal recharge. Fang is fast enough, though. It doesn't like a cloud recharge rate. It's more, usually takes about 3 ability uses for it to recharge in my experience. Nice thing of the EX, though, is that it does give Fang an HP plus for both of her stances, Saboteur and Commando. In Saboteur stance, her HP plus deals increased brave damage if the target's debuffed, and in Commando stance, it does an AoE brave followed by a single target HP attack. They're only 1 brave hit each, so they're not the best. They don't have any brave overflow, so they're not as great as stuff like Cloud's HP plus, but they are nice to fill turns if you cannot use her abilities. Last thing to mention is Fang's weapon realization, because she gets that along with her EX weapon. When realized, she starts with 2 stacks of Fang of Transgression out the gate, so she can build up to full stacks in 2 turns after that by using a Whirlwind and breaking a target, or using Umbral Vice and hitting a debuff target to gain 2 additional stacks, and then just doing something else to get the last stack. So she builds up her stacks to get to full a lot faster. If you limit break it, the bonuses go in this order. At 1 limit break, Fang gets a small increase to her attack and max brave stats. At 2 limit breaks, Fang deals increased brave damage if she hits a broken target or breaks a target when using High Wind. And on the final limit break, High Wind gains an additional brave attack, increased brave overflow, and increased brave damage. If you are going to invest in Fang, I would suggest that you probably want to go the whole way. But at the same time, she's not quite as strong as other DPS units right now. She still has her niche, and I kind of wish I'd held off on Cloud and invested in her first, now that I'm looking back on it. But it's something to keep in mind. Suggestions for how to play her. In my experience using Fang so far, you want to get her debuffs up on targets so that she is doing as much debuffing as possible. She applies a speed down generic, a max brave down generic, and a defense down generic debuff. They're not the strongest, but they're pretty nice. After that, you want to try to time using her additional ability with as many whirlwinds as possible to increase the damage that she deals even further, because remember, chain attacks increase HP damage dealt. Coupled with her HP damage all additional ability, she can chunk damage with a good chain attack and people with high brave. For that reason, you also want to try to pair her with brave batteries where possible. I've had good success pairing her with Charlotta, because if you combine Fang and Charlotta together, Charlotta's unique buff from her EX increases HP damage by 20%. That can be added onto what Fang does, so it's nice. It makes it so that she can do a lot of damage in a single turn, almost 150% of what damage you should be doing. And lastly, just characters that can help her set up good chain attacks. Characters who can fill brave and not necessarily dump it all the time. And characters that can keep up with her speed. Fang is generally fast, so if you're bringing a slow team with her, she'll just outspeed everyone. In teams with specifically Cloud, I've seen her just take 2 turns before Cloud takes 1. So just keep that in mind. Downsides is that she can burn through her ability uses relatively fast if you're not careful. Try to spread out the ability uses where you can. Remember, she has 3 uses of her additional ability, so you don't have to worry about timing them perfectly. You want to try to squeeze as much use out of them as you can, but you also don't want to hold onto them forever. I think that's everything. Mino, Mark, do you have any comments to make on Fang?
Well, I know in the Japanese version of the game, she was considered fairly weak in terms of her EX ability compared to a lot of the other realizations that were seen. So, I mean, it sounds like she has some pros and some cons, but did not see a lot of people invest in her, especially the ingots right now. So, do you think that was a fair assessment, or do you think that there's some potential for the character? It sounds like you think there's some potential. Trace.
I definitely think there's some potential for Fang. She has the downside where she only has 1 HP dump with High Wind. So Cloud can potentially do a lot more damage with his EX ability. Golbez can potentially do a lot more damage with his EX ability because they do multiple HP hits. For what her ability does, especially if you MLB her EX realized weapon, she can hit very, very, very hard with Highwind. Because remember, damage amp from hitting a broken target, extra brave hits on full MLB, more brave overflow. You couple that with her HP increased damage, and she is just chunking guys. She'll never do as much potential damage as characters like Cloud just because it's all stuck in a single HP attack, but she can consistently do a lot of damage across her turns, is what I've seen. And you cannot ignore the strength of a speed down aura, one that cannot be mitigated by debuff immunity. It's really strong. It's the same reason Sephiroth was strong for a long time. Besides him just having a multi-hit attacks, he also just slows enemies and there's nothing they can do to stop him.
So I lucked into Fang on accident. I had her 0-3, so I was able to at least test out her kit a bit. You know, I agree with everything Kreese said. Like, the slow aura is very strong. Triple debuffs. Our first real, I wouldn't even say first real debuffer because we got Tidus at the same time. But I can
We also had
see.
Precedence a week ago.
Oh yeah, but I can see some cracks in the armor with her already that make me very wary. And you know, to be fair, I'm not the biggest Fang fan, but I kind of don't want to use her. The break conditional for the launch or the hitting a broken target there. First, her skill 1 outside of synergy did not seem that strong. Granted, again, I'm 0-3 Fang, but it just did not seem to hit very hard outside of synergy. And then we know that chaos.
I will mention that Umbral Vice is a lot stronger when she's hitting a target that is debuffed already. So her first use just doesn't hit that hard.
Oh,
I
no.
agree with you.
But I mean, even with hitting a debuff target, it still seemed kind of weak. And I'm talking about we'll get to the fights later, but there are a couple of fights here and there where if they have a huge defense buff, or even like, you know, invisible defense buffs, like in synergy against the Sahagins with their defense buff up and hitting a debuff target, it's very okay. As in, like, Cloud is hitting just as hard without that conditional, or even harder. And then outside of synergy, in Garland's event, which we'll be talking about, where that invisible debuff buff comes up as well. Ooh, do you notice that it just does not do much damage, and it's really painful?
You do know Fang is boosted for Garland's event, right?
What? That's even worse.
She is boosted for Garland's event.
That's even worse. But I see, like, the damage honestly doesn't impress me right now, but I know she's primarily a debuffer, and I'm already wary of that. I know defense is only going to keep scaling as we move forward, and that applies to skill 2's conditional on the launch as well. Having to break a target or hit a broken target is going to become less and less common as we move forward. So I want to say, a lot of people were saying, I didn't get Tidus's EX, so maybe one of you guys can corroborate this, but a lot of people are saying Tidus carried that event harder than Fang did, which I'll have to see.
I have not booked Tidus. I have his EX, but I didn't book it because I decided to focus on Fang.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people are saying that Tidus did do better, but let's talk about Tidus before we talk about that.
Oh, right. Yeah, but so just to finish off on Fang, I just think she has too many limitations on her kit that are going to age badly, because these are strict conditionals that don't age well as enemy stats increase. And as we know, in the future, kits have less and less restrictions. Moving into a new era with most of her restrictions intact kind of hurt her in the long run, I think.
I think that's a fair assessment. She's definitely not going to be dishing out the same power as other characters. And anytime that she comes across her limitations, it's going to hurt her more than, for example, Cloud will be hurt by it.
Right, because Cloud and a lot of other characters, like Warrior of Light, have big self batteries before their attack, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, they can get away with not shaving hard, but Fang does not have that, so it kind of hurts.
Any thoughts, Mark?
Are we ready to go on to Tidus?
Sure, take us away.
So
If you have no thoughts about Fang, then yeah.
my thoughts on Fang are just what I shared, I guess. So yeah, so we also got a not a rework, but a level 70 awakening and a EX realization for everyone's favorite Final Fantasy X protagonist, Tidus. So Tidus's level 70 gives him actually it's level 65 and then Bloom and level 70 extension, gives him the AA, and I wanted to check in game to make sure this is what it was called, Buff Longer Slash. So the Buff Longer Slash is actually an ability. It is actually an HP plus Brave attack or a 2 Brave hit plus HP attack that extends his buffs by 2 turns. He gets 2 uses of that, and it also gives him a bonus up of attack for 3 turns. Now, this is very interesting because one of Tidus's issues is he needs this winning spirit buff, which he gets from Quick Hit, to really do the most amount of damage possible. But we'll also see with his realization that becomes a little bit more helpful. But that will extend that and all other buffs that he has on himself. So that's a pretty cool... just the buff extension would be nice, but this is also a Brave plus HP attack, so it gives him another Brave plus HP attack option for free. So very, very cool that he gets that at his level 70 awakening. He also gets an EX realization. So for those of you who are familiar with Tidus and have him and had his EX, Tidus is one of those characters that has had highs and lows just like Cloud. Every time he gets a new toy, he kind of jumps to the top of the rotation. So, but his EX was fairly early. It did cap, so there's no overflow on it, and that does limit it. The nice thing about his EX is it's AoE, and it is very, very fast charging, so it's always ready to go, especially if you go through his kind of rotation now that you have to do with Winning Spirit. So his base realization for his EX gives Energy Rain 120% overflow, so just a slight overflow. If you spend 1 ingot on it, he gets more attack and enables an HP plus plus. He already has an HP plus from his EX if you max limit break it. His HP plus plus has overflow now. So his normal HP plus, which was very good at the time of his EX launch, was a 2-hit Brave plus HP attack. His HP plus plus is a 2-hit Brave plus HP attack with overflow. So great when paired with all of those nice buffers and batteries. He's going to be able to dump that Brave very, very effectively. On 2 uses, or 2 MLB, or 2 Ignites, he gets higher potency, so it does more damage, and he starts the battle with 3 turns of Winning Spirit at the beginning of the quest. So very, very useful, so you don't have to use Quick Hit to apply it. It already starts with it. You can go straight into doing damage. Very, very cool. And at 3 ingots, he gets a 150% overflow, and that is the final upgrade to his EX, or his fully realized EX. His sphere is an E-sphere that inflicts a 6-turn speed down if HP is max when breaking, attacking broken targets. So gives him additional debuffs, which is very, very nice. So his EX realization is very, very nice. His AA ability is really nice. The issue is he's not a straight, just like Fang, just like Vincent. He is a debuffer primarily, and he is a very fast debuffer. Now, he can do decent damage, especially if you fully realize his EX, because Energy Rain is going to have 150% overflow. His HP plus plus is going to have overflow. It's going to have great potencies, so he is going to do decent damage. But his debuffs, which are attack down, defense down, and speed down, can get nerfed a lot in these chaos fights, because almost all of these chaos bosses are weak to something. You saw it with the both the Fang bosses and the Garland boss that we're going to talk about this week. They're both resistant to debuffs, and immediately made Cloud and Vincent and their uses kind of limited because of that. And you're going to see the same thing for Tidus, but he does depend on I think those debuffs to get help. He does pair well, obviously, with other damage dealers who can take advantage of his debuffs. He also pairs well with support and battery that can give him more max brave, that can give him more attack, that can give him battery so that he can dump that brave more effectively. So there's not a lot of characters who are going to be problematic with Tidus, except perhaps other debuffers, especially if they're sharing some of those debuffs. Or as Kreese said with Fang, if you have two slow characters with Tidus, he's going to take all kinds of turns away from them. I have not booked or fully realized his EX weapon just because of our shortage of ingots right now. So yeah, so what do you guys have to say about Tidus? Anything I left out, or I don't think either of you had an opportunity to use them, but I will say that there were plenty of clears of this Fang Chaos with realized Tiduses for sure. So gentlemen,
Kreese, anything?
I don't know if you mentioned it. I might have missed it. You forgot to mention that at 2 out of 3 limit breaks on his realized weapon, he also refreshes winning spirit when using energy rain, which is a huge win for him.
Yes,
because the only way he can get energy rain without that, winning spirit without that, is to use quick hit base version. So quick hit plus does not refresh winning spirit.
Yeah, no,
so
thank
you'd
you
have
for
to
that.
let the buff fall off and then reuse quick hit to get it back.
Oh, I'm really glad you guys brought that up, because I was talking to my friend about that the other day, because he was asking if it was worth ingoting Tidus. I had no Tidus EX. I didn't do the research, because he always said the worst thing about Tidus is he's so reliant on quick hit. Now I can tell him, no, he could use his EX now too. So there's that. And
at 2 out of 3. And
Yeah.
that's also the reason that I'm going to recommend, if you want to use Tidus, you're going to have to use at least 2 ingots on him. I do not think he'll work without that. It changes the way he plays so much, and I think Arolai would agree with me in chat.
Yeah, and I thank you for that clarification. He starts the quest, he starts the battle with winning spirit, and then every time he uses his EX, if you have it 2 out of 3, he regains the winning spirit, which is fundamentally changes how he plays considerably and makes him much more worth using. So Arolai says he is great.
He remains reliant on his quick hit, but it is much better to be able to refresh it on energy rain as well.
Yeah. So yeah, you have to kind of play around with that and make sure that continues to be up.
I have nothing good to say about Tidus. I think this is the 3rd time he's featured. 2nd or 3rd time. Either way, I've thrown a lot of resources at every banner he's been on, and he just does not want to fucking come. I mean, there's the infamous 145k the first time he showed up, and that's with $37k dollars worth of gems, because I bought. It wasn't even a costume pack. I just wanted Tidus that much for some reason that I bought 9,000 gems when I couldn't get him in 135. So I bought 9,000 gems and threw 2 more multiples, and I just didn't get him. And I was furious. I think he came back sometime in the summer, during the summer like FF10 banners. Am I wrong here?
He came back with his rework on the summer banners, and he was paired with Orin.
Okay, good. I remember throwing like 200 plus tickets there, and I managed to score Orin, but again, Tidus eluded me. And so here I am again. I rage pulled because I was struggling with Fang Chaos for a bit, and I kind of wanted Tidus really bad, because I was like, well, I actually like Tidus. He's a main character, so he's going to get a burst. You know, he has a bright future, and it'll probably make Fang Chaos easier for me. So I threw another 160 tickets, and I didn't get jack shit again. So
didn't you get Fang EX?
Yeah, but nobody wants that. So,
I wanted it.
So Tidus eluded me. Tidus, I've thrown, I think, around 150k plus gems at him, and almost 400 tickets, and he just doesn't want to come to me. I refuse to EX token him on principle at this point, because you don't give in to a child throwing a tantrum. I'm not gonna give it. It's out of principle. I will not token him. I'm gonna get him on a poll someday, but he's being a real fucking brat right now.
Wow. Well, good time. So hopefully all of you were able to pull your Fang or Tidus EXs and realize them if that is what you would like to do. So that does bring us to, was there anybody else on that banner? these
Yuna,
poor,
but she didn't have her EX, so she's kind of dead.
yeah, these poor banners with 2 EXs and then some poor schmuck who's on the banner. So yeah, Yuna's great if you just started playing the game and you need that Asuna. You can pick up Yuna's weapons. Helps with those early bad breath fights. Going to our podcast polls, do either one of you have that up here? Who was going to do what on the podcast polls on our community?
So we had 4 pities, one of those including me, 2 gems, 17 people saying they'd spend tickets, and 39 saying they would skip.
Ouch.
So the majority said they were going to skip this banner, which isn't too surprising. Tidus has already shown up a couple times, and Fang is, in many people's opinion, underwhelming. So it kind of makes sense that most people were leaning towards skipping the banner altogether.
Very good. Yeah, Eons says we've always just called it the Rando Third. And thanks for the subscribe, Eons. Appreciate it. So yes, that does bring us to the topic of every fight these days, and that is the Chaos Battle, or the new level 180 part 15 of the Lost Chapter. Every Lost Chapter from this point forward has a Cosmos and Chaos difficulty fight. Thankfully, you do not need to bring the featured character or the chapter character into that battle, because that would make it really painful unless you had them fully realized and fully awakened. As always, if you are struggling, go on Reddit and you can check out Macnol's Call to Arms, Macnol. We do link that in our show notes, his index to all the Call to Arms. And you can see what other people are doing. And there's lots of different people doing lots of different setups. But yes, did one of you gentlemen want to talk about the Sahagins and what the heck their thing was?
Let me tackle this because I think I had the most trouble with this one.
Sure.
I mean, I'm gonna skip through the trash waves. I really don't think they're worth covering. So we just talked about the final wave. And
the middle wave was just a worm, right? Just one worm. It wasn't that.
Yeah, it's pretty quickly dispatched. I don't think the mid bosses are worth talking about just yet. No. But for this event, it's the double Sahagins that we all infamously know from GL's Hell Month. This is the beginning of GL's Hell Month, by the way. Woo-hoo! Next LC is Deuce. The one after that is Agrius. You know, the worst possible like span of events we've ever had are
Hell
coming
Month
back.
Anniversary.
Start us off on Chaos, right? So, so the Sahagins we all remember. They do a lot of debuffs. They buff themselves like crazy. They do AOE damage, and they just do a ton of damage. And so it's 2 of them. I think this was the beginning of the events that punished you for killing one of the 2 early, because one of them would just enrage and start buffing and spamming huge attacks if you killed one early. So you really had to manage both of them. I mean, I think the fight was pretty straightforward. Right now, I think early Chaos is just a matter of numbers. But once I got the notion down of they will always buff themselves. The first buff is always attack, followed by defense, I believe. And those are the ones you either want to push off with debuffs or dispel. The later buffs are, I believe,
the
speed
buff
up.
order, Mino, I believe is Engrave up, attack up, defense up, speed up, and feeblement up. Yep, so Engrave is the first one you push off.
Thank you. So technically, ideally, you want to be able to push off the first 3 buffs either through dispels or throwing on 3 more debuffs. Oh no, shit! It's 5. They've buffed themselves 5. There's 6 slots, so you want to throw 4 debuffs on there. Honestly, it's
ideally you want to push off as many as possible.
Yeah, I always, for my team, I always left on the last 2, and they were kind of negligible. But I'll get to that. Because we're just covering the general fight right now. So they throw on 5 buffs of themselves. You want to at least get rid of the first 3 to make it manageable. And there's a lot of approaches to this fight. People either focused on removing their buffs or preventing the debuffs from hitting their own team, because they do both. They buff a huge amount and they debuff a huge amount. I think this was a wake up call for me, or was it the last Chaos? I gotta remember. But for most of Cosmos, I treated fights like a marathon and tried to spread out ability use as much as possible. For these last 3 Chaoses that we've been getting, I've learned that spamming abilities and rushing through is honestly the best strat, because the turn counts are much tighter, and like these bosses get progressively stronger and get a lot of invisible buffs as the fight drags on. So you really want to end this as fast as possible. So I learned that speeding through really helped me, and the other thing is that when they're targeting you, I think I asked around a lot, and it's almost random, almost impossible to predict whether they're going to do just the water shot brave attack or they're going to do the multi-skewer brave plus HP, right? Have you guys found any pattern?
I think the discussion point was that they will only multi-skewer if they are not broken when their turn starts. So if you can make sure that they will not recover from break right as their turn comes up, you can avoid multi-skewer.
Right. So either way, I just made sure every time their turn was coming up and they were targeting the party, especially single target. I think I ate some AoEs raw because, the damage is split. It's not so bad. Summon evasion passives can kick in once in a while. But during single target, I was extra careful to make sure they did not have any brave, whether that was through poisons and saps, whether to make sure they were just freshly broken.
These guys are actually immune to poison. You can only use saps or frame poisons.
Yeah. There's frame poisons, so I stand by my word. So whether through poisons or saps, whether they were freshly broken or you have a tank, no, not even a tank, just shields up, I made sure defense was always a priority if they were targeting a single target. After that and pushing through, I was finally able to make it through. My early mistakes were trying to push for longevity and trying to guess the multi-skewer. Instead, I just played it extra safe and expected it every time. Kreese, do you have anything to add to their mechanics specifically before we go into our approaches?
The main issue that I found I had with my attempt was that Erdgeist's power, which is their recover from break, brave plus HP AoE attack, can inflict turn rate down along with max brave down.
Those are, and they're rough debuffs.
Really kills your ability to deal damage and act for several turns. I think it's 5 turn duration debuffs on each character that gets inflicted with it. And with their enfeeblement up, I was having even my Warrior of Light with his elude buff active, still getting hit sometimes by those debuffs. So it can be annoying.
Yeah, both of these fights, both this fight and the Garland fight, are going to have some RNG elements in terms of whether the debuffs hit you, because there's going to be certain debuffs, especially in the Garland fight, that you just don't recover from, and you just need to reset, basically. And that's all. I mean, that's all RNG because there's a chance that they won't hit. So, but yeah, no. Again, I was hoping to be able to use Vincent, but they're immune to Int Brave down, which kind of nerfs one of his debuffs, which makes him not particularly useful. And they're immune to Sap, which does hinder Cloud. Of course, he's still doing more damage than anybody else right now.
You mean Paralyze?
So, Paralyze, yes. What did I say? Anyway, yeah, well, he doesn't do Sap. He does Paralyze, and so I was trying to paralyze him the first time I ran through, and it wasn't working, and I wasn't sure why. I was like, oh, are they getting to act twice? Are they that fast? No, they're immune to Paralyze, so that didn't work. So yeah, my first strategy using Charlotta, Vincent, Cloud, and Friend Cloud was not a great strategy. So
so to add into chat's adding in, there's some confirmation that they will not Brave plus HP multi-skewer if they're broken on their turn. So that's good to know. Makes it a little more predictable. As long as their breaks are fresh and you're tracking their Brave recovery, you can see that coming better than I can, that I did. And God of Cloud9 is saying that if you just want to get the clear, which obviously all the rewards are front loaded on chaos, so you get like 90% of the rewards just off the clear, that Leon really trivializes the fight with
Oh,
his EX ability. So that is good to
interesting.
know if anyone has Leon and is having trouble getting the clear.
Hmm.
For the fight, I had a really cookie cutter team. Cloud, Charlotta, Warrior of Light, shields for their attacks, burst, and meteor rain as much as possible to dispel. So, nothing special, just pushed hard and shielded every attack. Did you guys have any different approaches, Crease?
I used a team of Warrior of Light, Fangs 0 LB, booked EX weapon, and Charlotta, and that gave me the 5 debuffs I needed to push off most of their debuffs. It gave me the ability to do a bunch of chain attacks because Fang was able to initiate 6 across the whole combat, which helped my score. And since Fang was boosted, it helped just nudge her damage up just enough to get over the hump. I found that you could not hold back abilities, though I had to adjust that a little bit. They're so durable that I had to hold some abilities back, especially near the end, to make sure I could break easily. But the important thing I found was just hoping you got a little bit lucky with which debuffs got on which characters, so that
Yeah.
your whole party was not max brave down at an inopportune moment. But I was able to do it on my first shot with that team, so it obviously wasn't too hard for me.
Mark, any different approach from there?
Yeah, once I realized that Vincent was not a good option, I actually brought Sarah. And Sarah helped in a couple different ways. She obviously helped with her debuffs because she has several different debuffs to push off the buffs. But she also has those generic buffs to push off the debuffs on your characters. So, yes, I did realize that. So, and Ink is saying Realm and Sarah were amazing. So my team was Cloud, Charlotta, Sarah with a Charlotta friend, and that was able to do it in 70 turns or less. The turn limit was 75 with this one. Um, there was a couple questions I want to go to chat here. XROS
Just a
7.
second, Mark.
Yes.
You reminded me of something. Sarah was definitely a really big MVP in this event, this chaos event, based on the call to arms so far. A lot of the wins that did not use an EX plus character, and even some of the ones that did use an EX plus character, also brought along Sarah for her
Yeah.
powerful debuffs.
Yeah, she was definitely very, very helpful and made it much more manageable. Xroz was asking how long does it take for the enemy to, how many turns, how many of your actions does it take for a broken enemy to come unbroken? Hey13 did respond in chat saying 5 turns, including free turns. So, yeah, 5 of your actions will unbreak the enemies if they are broken. Um, Aaron Den says, haven't tried Garland's Chaos, but my experience with Chaos in general is me spending 100 gems to revive just to get the clear. And that is a viable option to get those rewards that you need for clearing Chaos. Just remember, if you're going to do the gem revive, make sure that you're not going to revive and just be wiped, because that can happen. You can do a gem revive and then immediately die because the enemies are working so fast or anything else. So make sure that you are in a good spot where you can do that. So it is tough, especially if you don't have those fully. Obviously, we all have some characters who are realized and characters who are well. My Cloud is very powerful, so that does help quite a bit.
Sango's saying that when they become unbroken depends on their int brave. That is incorrect, Sanga. It changes what brave they come out of break at, but
Right.
it still takes the same number of turns no matter what. They just recover brave at a different rate.
Yeah, because the recovery is percentage based on whatever the hell their in brave is at the time. Um, Zaxaroth is saying that I said that Leon helps on this LC, but they have 2 elemental attacks that they spam, so it doesn't seem that Leon's doesn't seem that helpful. So as a reminder,
actually, most of the shaman's attacks are elemental. One of the few things that is not is Sahagin Jump, that AoE brave attack, and multi-skewer, the scary recover from break attack.
Right, so the killers. So I'm saying like to as a reminder, Leon's converts all non-elemental enemy attacks into dark and gives you dark absorb so that it batteries the hell out of you. And what that means is because I did try Leon actually. I got a clear with Leon, no complete, of course. I don't know if Arole did. She's a huge Leon fan, but it really made it easy because they like to multi-skewer when they can, when you don't break them. So that means you can focus less on breaking them, and they will battery the hell out of you and do very minimal damage. Or if they do the Sahagin jump as well. Oh, is the Sahagin jump plus their AOE Brave plus HP?
No, it's Erdgeist power is their AoE
That
Brave
one
plus
is
HP.
also non-elemental, correct?
No,
Because
it's elemental.
oh,
It's
it
Earth
is.
element.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know. I can say from anecdotal evidence that Leon made things much, much easier for me. He just didn't have the damage to get that complete. Arola is saying in chat that she got a clear no problem with Leon as well, but no complete. Right, God of Cloud. We're just talking about clears though. Like if you're desperate for a clear, Leon should make it very easy to get the clear and the nuggies, which are the most important part of the rewards. You know,
There
because the
are
complete is. Huh? Go ahead.
there are several budget runs that were done several times, so you know that they are workable on the Call to Arms. Again, Macnol's Call to Arms, Macnol. Sarah Realm Charlotta. There were 5 video submissions with Sarah Realm Charlotta, no realizations. Sarah Warrior of Light Charlotta, pre Warrior of Light realization. And then some Sarah Zach Charlotta, that's just a one-off. Sarah Ramza Warrior of Light Charlotta, Sarah Noctis Charlotta. Obviously not a lot of variation between those, but none of those characters were realized, so there were some non-realization clears in this event. So it is achievable. So does Sarah need perfect arts? My Sarah has all of her boosts. So 3 2-star boost all, and then 2 Embrave 330s and 1 attack 108. So if that gives you some sense. But yeah, if you're taking the other characters, you can look at the videos and see what people had. I have seen some videos with Sarah with, perfect in terms of both cursed arts to give her that bonus max brave and extra uses of Moonlight, which is really nice. So yeah. But yeah, check those videos. Like I said, my Sarah, certainly doesn't have perfect cursed arts, but does have good arts. I like the buff better than the extra max brave in that, but her max brave is considerably lower than everybody else's. That's for sure, without that extra Moonlight plus buff. So, anything else about Fang Lost Chapter, gentlemen?
One last thing to note is that the only time-limited rewards for these lost chapters that are locked behind chaos are 5 tickets. I think that's it.
Is it 5? I thought it was 6. It's 10?
10
tickets.
We'll
10
have
tickets.
different numbers here, guys.
Hold
Chat,
on,
help us out. I thought
check.
it was 6.
I can check. It is 10 tickets. Complete the Lost Chapter, Fangs of Promise in hard mode. 10 tickets. I know that because I haven't done all the other ones.
That is the only thing, though, that is locked behind the time-limited events. So if you are struggling with it, don't worry.
No,
10 draw tickets is nothing.
Yeah, that's not time limited. I'm sorry, that's the player mission. That's not the time limited mission. I don't have any
limited. Ragnamune saying it's 6. I remember it being 6. Yeah, everyone's fighting about the 10, so I'm gonna default to the 6 tickets, guys, because I thought I saw that in Discord as well. Yeah, everyone's saying not 10. 10 is permanent.
10 is permanent, correct.
Square Enix Joshua, if you have the correct answer here, I would appreciate the assist. But it looks like more people are saying 6 for now. Oh, 3 for the clear, 3 for the complete.
Yeah, there you
go. So 3 tickets.
Yep.
3 tickets if you can't get the clear, and the clear you should get anyways, because you should 100% gem revive for the 5 nuggies per event. I think that's it. Are we ready to move on?
Gems
It
that
is
you
3
don't.
tickets that are time limited
Those are time
behind
limited.
that, yes.
3 tickets. So that's 3 chances.
That's for the complete.
Yeah. Just so it's not worth the stress if you can't easily get the complete, because that's just 3 chances to not get Tidus EX. So you're not missing out on anything. So let's
Now, I would suggest that you complete as much of the rest of the Lost Chapter before the time-limited rewards go away, because there are gems, tickets, upgrade materials, more importantly, high crystals and high shards locked behind those earlier stages. So clear those out, but don't worry too much about the Chaos fight if you're struggling.
Raumuk says, the Nuggies aren't time limited. Why would you gem revive if you don't need them now? Well, for half the events, half the fights that are going to give Nuggies are limited time events. More than half, because sometimes it's also the raid events and stuff that are limited time. LCs are in the minority when it comes to battles that give Nuggies. So I think that like we're just, if you need to get in the habit, if you cannot clear chaos consistently, then you should be ready to get some gem revives for it. There's no shame in that. It's the smarter investment. 100 gems for 5 Nuggies, easy trade.
Say Nuggies one more time.
I'll say it forever. It's gonna be a thing. But I'm pretty sure that's all we had to say on Fang, right, guys?
I think that's everything. If you were here when Fang's event first rolled around, the boss is not much of a surprise. Their AI has not changed.
Right.
And
so
it is important as we move to Garland, it is important to remind everyone that as these events last and limited time rewards last about 2 weeks, other characters get realizations, other characters get added to the game, and you can always go back and try again when you have some stronger options. And I think that's going to be important
and
moving forward.
Summon board worth of stats. Keep that in mind. We're getting another summon board worth of stats in less than a week.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So Garland, the event Cycle of Battle with the invigorating Garland story, also brings us the Final Fantasy I villain, the very first villain of Final Fantasy. He is back and in full
I think,
armor.
Mark, more importantly, Garland brought Mino out of retirement.
Yes. So
that's I don't want to talk about this.
So covering our Garland character discussion will be the evaluator himself, Mino Spellgood, who did an excellent post on Reddit that you should go and downvote right now. And make sure you upvote the Tomberry Troop. Thank you for the subscribe, Areas Music. Appreciate that. So, yes, very good. We do thank you for that. Go check it out. We always like Mino's evaluations. That's one of the reasons we got him on the show. I think Talute, thank you for the subscribe
we got
too.
The full we got the full Tonberry troop here now. All four out of 4, right? So I can finally
fell asleep again.
Oh shit. Okay, well I can finally say that
Dreamy went to bed.
I really didn't want to mention the eval because it was 100% a one-time thing. I'm telling everyone now, it's not a regular fucking thing. People were like, "Oh, Mino's back." I responded in the comments. I was like, "It was a one-time thing. Don't sub to me." But it was created as part of the war with Tonberry Troop to see if I can get more upvotes on my Garland eval, launching at the same time as Tonberry Troop's Garland infographic. And the last time I checked, which was right before this podcast started about an hour ago, TCC was winning. So I'm going to call it a victory there.
You are winning by 1 upvote.
Hell yes. All right. But honestly, this is a podcast. We have time restrictions, so it's not going to be nearly in depth. So I'm going to go through this really fast, which is, excuse me, a lot of alcohol. Hang on. Sorry. Okay. Garland. I always like to talk about the concept. I always talk about the lore of the characters because it always fascinates me so much. But in the Dissidia games, when they reinvented Warrior of Light and Garland, Warrior of Light was supposed to be 100% the team-oriented defensive character, and Garland was supposed to be his exact opposite, which is a solo super offensive character. And in every iteration of the Cydia games, it's always been like that. And even in NT, which is the parent game of DFFOO, right now, in Dissidia NT, Warrior of Light gains stacks of his unique buff every time he blocks an attack, and Garland gains it when he attacks repeatedly without getting hit in a short period of time. And this seems to be exactly translated into DFFOO because, of course, this is a homage to NT, where Garland gains stacks of Soul of Chaos as he uses his abilities frequently enough so that the buff doesn't fall off. So we'll talk about Soul of Chaos is a stacking buff that goes up to 5 stacks. It increases Garland's attack and max brave, and once he hits max stacks of 5, his abilities become plus, and they do more damage and have more overflow. Very straightforward. His skill 1 is Round Edge, which is an AoE brave attack into a single target HP attack, and it gives him 3 stacks of Soul of Chaos. And then his second ability, called Soul of Chaos, confusingly enough, grants him 2 stacks of Soul of Chaos and is a huge single target Brave plus HP hit. Again, very simple, very straightforward. He wants to hit the 5 stacks, maintain it, and do big damage. Now, his second gimmick is that he has a second unique buff called Soul of Conflict, is the GL localization. He gains that whenever he uses EX, his AA, or when he scores a break on a target. And it usually lasts for 1 turn unless you fully bloomed his AA and his EX. Those give it to him for 2. But if he just breaks an enemy with an ability, then he gets the 1 turn of Soul of Conflict. What Soul of Conflict does is gives him another huge attack and overflow buff, but more importantly, while the buff is up, any attack he lands delays the enemy. And this is a big deal because this means that as long as he's able to break enemies with his abilities throughout the fight, he gets a constant, steady source of delays. And that completely transforms his abilities. And I like this design that you can play him straightforward, or if you really lean into his kit, his at first seemingly simple abilities become transformed. Because with Soul of Conflict, Round Edge, which is a AoE brave attack, now suddenly becomes an AoE delay, which is, I believe, extremely unique right now in the game. Besides Orin, I believe Orin EX is the only AoE delay we have right now. Right, guys? Or am I wrong here?
You are correct as far as I can think.
Right. And then, nobody likes Orin, so he's like
He
a
has a
non-fact.
garbage kit right now.
He's terrible. Just get him out of here. He's not even going to be good for another 9 months. Just don't even look at him. And, and then
People are saying Cid EX.
Nobody pulled for
Big
that.
brawl.
How many people here have Cid EX? You guys are lying.
Rolai has it.
Yeah, besides her, nobody else has Cid EX. Nobody. And show me a Cid EX Chaos Complete, guys, and I'll eat my words. I want to see a video right now.
Oh, a Rolai's reminding us Sync 2.
Son of a bitch. Nobody has that either. Show me a Sync Chaos Complete, and then I'll eat my words. But okay. But fine. I'll change the wording. Garland has potentially the most delays because he potentially has as many delays as he has abilities, as long as he's getting the breaks. And they're on demand because of his AA. He potentially has 4 turns of back-to-back AoE delays. So if he really wanted to, he can push the entire enemy team's turns back 4 turns. That's a big deal. Moving on to his EX, it's the coolest animation we've ever seen. I don't care if you disagree. You're wrong. That's the best. Everyone's seen this EX, right? You guys, it's worth checking out if you want to see it on GLDFFOO's official Twitter account. It is a 4 consecutive Brave plus HP attacks that get progressively stronger. And it instantly gives him the Soul of Conflict before the attack goes off. So I think it's a guaranteed delay, guaranteed overflow, guaranteed huge hit. The big thing with this is if you 3/3 Garland's EX plus weapon, and I'll get to his EX plus steps right after this, is it refunds all HP damage done so far. So the example that I used that should be easy to understand is if he does 50k HP damage with the first hit, he's going to get back 10k Brave before he starts the second hit. If he does 50k HP damage with the second hit, he gets an additional 10k, so 20% of each HP damage done per step. He gets an additional 10k. He starts the third attack with 20k Brave. And then it goes into the third hit. And then, of course, the fourth and final hit does not refund. But basically, it refunds a ton of Brave. And this makes him extremely valuable when you pair him with batteries, because he later on, when people are going to have enemies are going to have massive defense and he can't break as easily or do as much damage on his own, he is refunding a crap ton of that battery that he's given. Like, he'll be carried, you throw a huge battery on him, you max his Brave before he EXs, and he's still churning out a ton of damage and making use of that battery. And of course, this scales even harder with increased HP damage done, as we've seen with Charlotta and Fang. And it's even more with any attack or max Brave buff. This is a kit that rewards attack more than any other kit in the game, I believe. Not only from encouraging the breaks, but also from this EX attack, because every time you're coming back from 0, doing a bunch of hits, and then spending that and getting a portion of that back as well. Like, I think attack is 100% necessary for this character. You have the biggest return of investment on Garland with the attack. So let me just move on really quick. I think I've spent too much time on this already. His EX plus stats are, if it's 0-3, he starts the quest or the mission with 2 stacks of his Soul of Chaos, meaning he already has his unique buff up. You just need 1 use of skill 1, and he's running at full power, and all his abilities are pluses. So that's a huge upgrade. The 1 out of 3 upgrade increases the potency of his EX, which is nice. The 2 out of 3 upgrade increases attack and max Brave by 40%, which is really nice. And finally, the 3 out of 3 gives his EX plus that cumulative refund ability. So this is a character you really want to 3/3 if you're going to use him in the long run. Besides that, just touching up on his weaknesses really quick, what I was telling Kreese about Fang is the conditional. The break conditional is great in theory, but Jekt also has this conditional. And as someone who tried to use Jekt as much as possible, it is very limiting, because either defense skills so hard that it's not easy for him to score breaks anymore, or he's running with teammates that hits harder and take the breaks from him. And if you start like sandbagging yourself to just get those breaks, it's really tough. Luckily, he has a workaround. His EX and his AA still guarantee the Soul of Conflict buff, but it's just that he loses a little effectiveness because of that conditional. And the other thing is, because he's a straight up, very straightforward, single target physical DPS focus, he gets easily replaced in a short amount of time. In terms of raw damage, to cut myself off, I'm not going to go on this big rant I went in my eval about how you're not pulling for strong characters anymore. You want a diverse roster. But Garland makes himself stand out by having this great delay gimmick built into his kit alongside his damage. So he can't ever be truly replaced. But in terms of a straight DPS, we have characters on the near horizon that are just going to eclipse him already. Like, I believe Machina coming up next month is already going to probably do more raw damage than him without the utility. But Garland, I would suggest pulling for if you really like the delay mechanic. I think he works really great with supports now. Ramza and Charlotta synergize great with him. Ishtola coming up is going to synergize great with him. The great thing about free turns like Charlotta, who spams free turns, is you can stall the enemy to unbreak themselves just to set Garland up for a break again. But other than that, that's all I had to say, which is too much. Kreese, any additional thoughts?
I don't have anything else to add other than to echo what you said. If you want to use Garland, make sure you set aside the EX plus resources. You need to ingot him to 3 out of 3 to see his true potential. Otherwise, he's just going to be another damage dealer, and the damage amplification from the 3 out of 3 EX plus when he uses his EX ability is massive. It's insane. Other than that, he's pretty straightforward. He's a lot simpler to play than some other characters, but we have a lot of simple to play realized weapon characters at the moment. No one's like too complicated.
And to add really quick, what Kreese said is that if he is a favorite, don't be afraid of investing him. A lot of people are saying that he gets crept really quick because Ultimecia is coming next. But if you search Japanese DFFO videos, he is relevant for a lot. He keeps popping up in every event here and there just because the delay is so useful and because of how his EX works. If you give him the most recent supports, he still pulls his weight somewhat. He's an amazing battery dump because of the refund. Mark, any thoughts?
Well, I don't think he has the best EX animation by far, so I think we're
Okay,
gonna
who
have
does?
to have,
Who does?
obviously, he doesn't summon Val, and Val being there makes all the difference. So that's my pick for best EX weapon animation.
I'd argue
by far.
Lightning's Army of One is better.
Wow, you serious? No,
So,
get out of I.
So what I'm hearing you say is go all in on Garland. All right. Well, also on this banner, if you are going all in on Garland, is Warrior of Light's EX, if you missed it. And he does not get a rework, and he already has his Awakening, but Warrior of Light does get an EX Realization. And if you have Warrior of Light, like most of you do, you probably have not been using his EX weapon because it blows a lot. So it's not particularly useful. It wasn't really one of his even better abilities after his rework. Didn't do any damage, didn't overflow. It did heal for a little bit. So that's really the only time you were using it, was to heal and maybe refresh some buffs. But generally speaking, it was not something that you were looking to, probably holding on to. He does have an EX Realization. If you book his EX, he gets a Shining Wave, the EX ability, gets 150% overflow. So that immediately makes it much more useful than it used to be without any overflow. If you limit break it, Shining Wave increases from 2 hits to 4 hits and becomes more potent or more powerful attack. If you 2 limit break it, he gets an attack and Embrave boost permanently. And if you fully limit break it, his fully realized EX weapon does a Brave gain based on his iBrave before the hits, and then does 200% overflow. So Warrior of Light, and then his sphere is at max HP, reduce 10% Brave damage to self, which is a nice tanky kind of ability sphere to have on your character. So the question for Warrior of Light is how much to invest in him. Most of us have his EX weapon because he's been hyped. He was pretty much dominating Cosmos. He's been useful in Chaos so far. You can use him very well with just his realized 0 limit broke EX. Gives his ability Shining Wave 150% overflow, so it's a useful ability. But each of these extra abilities do make him more useful. Obviously, more hits and more damage is good. Obviously, the buffs to attack and Embrave are good. And even the 3/3 gives him additional Brave based on his iBrave, and also more overflow. So I can see arguments for any one of these depending on your needs and depending on how you're using them. Personally, I have just stuck to 0 out of 3 or just booked him, and he's been working fine for me. I brought him both to Fang, or I guess I brought him to Fang before, but then brought him to Garland, and he did a lot of stuff. So I'm sure both of you have booked Warrior of Light, or maybe you haven't. So what's your take on Warrior of Light? Kreese, Mino?
Warrior of Light is in an interesting spot where he's so strong and he relies so much on support that you can get away with deciding for yourself how much you need to load him up with stats by limit breaking his EX plus. I currently only have him booked. I haven't invested any ingots on him. I'm considering investing maybe one or two because the first level, those extra brave hits on his EX just makes it less likely he's just going to cap on every hit and do nothing. And it be his worst ability to press still. Even with the brave overflow, it can still be a problem where he just doesn't do enough brave damage because it's stuck on 2 brave hits. And I get the feeling as difficulty goes up, I'll want that second limit break to get his attack up so he's hitting decently with his brave hits going forward. But he's such a strong character that this is just like an extra layer of deliciousness on top of a very strong kit already, so you can get away with whatever you think you can get away with, most likely. He's definitely a lower priority for me to invest in heavily.
Yeah, I think moving forward, if we do end up with some additional resources and extra resources, which we don't assume we are going to end up with, but having multiple tanks going forward into far ends of dimension is not a bad idea. And, the more you invest in him, the better he will be. That being said, he is useful at pretty much any number of investments on his EX realization. So, yeah. Oh, question from God of Cloud9. What is his best in slot arts currently in Chaos? Well, there's a lot of argument around that. I can look and see what the Tonberry Troop recommended in theirs. Yes, so their recommendation was I Brave 170, Attack 180, then Max Brave 330, and Class Change Boost 2-star in that order. I really think probably a combination of all of those, and you're gonna kind of have to find what combination is right for you. I believe my Warrior of Light, just to give you a sense of what mine looks like, my Warrior of Light
I know my
has...
Warrior of Light has a mix of all of
Yep.
those except for maybe class change boost. I have a couple max brave ups, I have a couple attack ups, and I have a couple int brave ups.
So I prioritize...
The thing is that
Oh, go ahead.
Warrior of Light scales on kind of all of the stats,
Yeah.
so it's hard to say one is the best. He really benefits from all of them.
So my Warrior of Light currently is sitting with Attack 108, 3. The current equipping, I have Attack 108, all 3, and then 1 Class Change Boost, 1 Int Brave, and 1 Max Brave. And I do, in my extra ones, I do have Int Brave, Max Brave as well, to kind of go all in Max Brave. That's what his shield's based on. But I do value that attack in Chaos quite a bit. So, yeah, I think you kind of just play around with it. Maybe, yeah, just a kind of a good mixture of each of them. But, yeah.
And I guess we should talk about the poll for this
please.
one. Okay, so we did put a poll up for who is going to pity, gem, ticket, or skip this banner. And the results were that 8 players were planning to pity this banner, 2 were going to gem pull, 24 were just going to ticket pull, and 34 were planning to skip it altogether. Again, Warrior of Light's a very popular character, and while Garland has his niche, he is not the next coming of God Cloud.
I just want to say that this has been the most split between pull and not pull out of banners in a long time. I was going to say for the Chaos era, but even before the Chaos era, people had clear skips and clear pulls. Very one-sided, like Fang, like 41 passes to 39 passes to like 20 something pulls, not even. This is pretty split down the middle.
Yeah, I think Garland, he has a lot of meme-ishness from his original game. He's kind of been built up as this cool character in some ways in his Dissidia origins, just being a character that likes to fight all the time and also wield a big sword, and big swords are always winners. So I'm not surprised people enjoy him. And people in chat are saying that they lied on the polls.
Whatever. Edit that up here.
Well, the polls aren't useful if you lie on them. So do be honest so that we can get a good sense.
MateriaBot does purge repeat votes. So if you ult on multiple things, it will not count.
Oh, I guess my turn. I don't know. Warrior of Light was a favorite character of mine in Dissidia. I find him boring now and I hate him, but I like winning, so I use him. That's my review. There we go. Very solid character. Very hard to like ever completely become obsolete, but God, is as we're entering the EX Plus era, we see how fundamentally boring his kit is. Honestly, you never even want to use the EX Plus unless you're desperate for a heal. So you're sticking to your 1 to 2 abilities. The AA is not even ideal unless you need a stall or something. And then even then, it's just pressing buttons. You don't have to think too. I hate Wall. To the event.
Mino's review is 10 out of 10 according to chat.
to the event, Mark. Oh,
To-
or Kreese, would you like to walk us through the fight if we're going by the motif of having spent the most time on it? Or
I haven't spent the most time on it. I just was the one who has not completed it yet.
well, you got your ass kicked, so you probably saw the worst of the fight. So you can talk about the how bad the mechanics can screw you, right? And then Mark and I can weigh it.
Sure.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so the Chaos Battle for Cycle of Chaos, Garland's event, introduces us to a boss called the Colorless Queen, which is a variant on the Ultima type boss that we've seen before. Colorless Queen is, to put it simply, annoying. She is immune to speed down debuffs. She is highly resistant to magic, but other than that, she doesn't have any immunities or resistances. So you can hit her with anyone as long as they're melee or ranged and do full damage. Any elements are okay and safe. The only problem is no speed down debuffs, which is a big problem because the Colorless Queen is very fast, as I found out in my attempts. The big gimmick with her is that she goes into the summon phases. She has a ultimate charge bar, kind of like the summon bosses we fought, the ultimate summon bosses. When that bar fills and she does her attack, she does a couple of things. She activates an AoE HP attack, which hurts the party, and then she activates Ruination Field, which locks out summons. And as the fight goes on, she also inflicts debuffs, including paralyzed, defense down, poison, and attack down. These debuffs do not have long durations, but they can be a big nuisance, especially if you get an unlucky paralyze at an inopportune time on a character that might need to take a turn, which is a nuisance. As I said before, she's very fast, and since you can't slow her down by conventional means, the only way to slow her down is to rely on unconventional means, such as taking along Sephiroth or Fang, or both for their slow speed down auras. Other than that, she cycles between using a mixture of single target and ranged attacks. They're mixed between melee and magic. None of them are elemental, so you can cheese it with Leon if you want to try that. One thing to note, however, is that when she goes into her summon phase, where she locks out summons and changes the field, she also does an ability called Light of Doom, which grants her a shield, very similar to Warrior of Lights, and that shield is pretty tanky. Especially at the end of the fight, I had trouble breaking it off so I could continue launching with Fang. And that was the big thing that held me up, was that I was struggling because I brought Charlotta and Warrior of Light. They're not great Brave Shavers. So I was struggling with that a lot. And just generally, she has a lot of nuisance abilities. She gets relatively tanky at the end. You have to work hard to get that shield down. And you also have to be careful to time your summon so that you do not get locked out of it at an inopportune time, is what I found.
Yeah,
Mark, anything to add?
Yeah, no, I will agree that you do need a Brave Shaver, someone to actually do Brave hits to take down that shield. That is pretty important. But you also have to manage the Ruination Fields, realizing that she does get more powerful the more damage you do to her, just like a lot of other characters and a lot of other enemies. So my strategy going in there was doing a Cloud Friend Cloud. I took the first Ruination Field, and that's a attack all, and then she brings that up. and kind of pushed it to that, and then waited until she was ready to release that second big attack, second AoE attack, which can be very damaging if you don't have Warrior of Light. I waited, or a good debuffer, I suppose. So I waited until she was about to do it the second time. Then I summoned, brought in Cloud, and was able to kind of keep her paralyzed long enough with the two clouds to do a massive amount of damage with Charlotta and Cloud and other Cloud, and able to pretty much take her out, and then bring in Warrior of Light right before she was able to do her second big AoE attack, shield up, and come back. So a nice little trick when you're using Friend Cloud. At the end of Friend Cloud's run, you can use their AA to bring back Warrior of Light if you need to have a quick shield all before that AoE attack, because you definitely want shield up before her big AoE attack or you might die. So, yeah, that was kind of my strategy, and I did it in just under 63 turns. This is a tight turn requirement of 65 turns, so clearing it, I don't know that that's such an issue. But definitely
clearing it definitely was not an issue for me. I was able to keep on top of damage dealt, so I was never in danger of dying. I did not hit the HP requirement just because Warrior of Light got chunked for about half his health right before I got the kill, and I was also about 10-12 turns over the turn limit. So that was a big problem. A couple people are noting in chat that Colorless Queen's shield is based on her initial brave.
Yeah.
So if you bring a way to reduce her initial brave, for example, Vincent, someone suggested possibly Lena for making it an easier break to deal with. And another person suggested Cloud's World of Illusion weapon, which would work if you were willing to use an ability use. It will knock off the shield because that's the only buffer she gives herself.
Here's the thing. I don't know if my experience was unique, but every time she had the shield up, I thought of going to Cloud to dispel, but everything I used broke the shield before he could even dispel.
Yeah,
cross slash.
Yeah, he breaks the shield. Yeah.
Right. So I'm not sure if that was just unique. Yeah. Like, do you even need his WOI? It seems like he just eats through the shield from my very limited experience.
I think Kreese's point is a good one, though. Characters like Warrior of Light and Charlotta are not doing enough brave hits unless you have Warrior of Light fully limit broken as EX. They're just not doing enough brave hits to take care of that. So you need somebody like Garland, somebody like Cloud, somebody who's going to do a lot of damage. So currently in the Call to Arms, there is no Lena clear and no Vincent clear. So if that's a strategy you want to take, I'm not saying you can't do it and submit a video, because that there are no clears with either of those characters as of right now. Now there is only one boss, so there's potential for turn delay shenanigans, and there is currently a Cloud Vayne Charlotta run. Talute did that.
Oh, nice.
So shout out to Talute, and he did bring Vincent Friend. So that's a pretty unique run of the runs. Besides that run, of the 21 runs currently on the Call to Arms, Talute is the only one that does not use Warrior of Light. So at various different EX limit broke, EX realizations. So
it's a restricting run. Oh, real quick in chat, Keimhard and Vince are saying that Cloud WOI only dispels on crit, and you can't crit with the shield up anyways, so you can't really use him to dispel the shield. So our bad guys break it. You can't really dispel it with Cloud. But I was saying, like, I don't even want to. I won't. I don't have any input on this fight. Apparently, I got extremely lucky. I even ran it twice just to check, and in 2 runs, I never got paralyzed, and I never saw the really bad stuff. So apparently, I got insanely lucky. So I have no insight to offer in the fight. But apparently, the C2A is one of the most stacked yet in terms of killing diversity. Apparently, a huge majority of the runs are the cookie cutter run of Cloud, Warrior of Light, Charlotta, Shiva Summon, Cloud Friend. Like exactly that. Like very little variation on Summon and Friend is well. So this might be turning out to be a horrible event, but I have not witnessed it. We're getting very mixed feedback in the chat. Basically, people either breathe through it or are struggling even worse than Fang. So it's really hard for me to even get an accurate gauge of this.
Yeah, so but there is an RNG element with her Ruination field. It kind of throws on random debuffs, and the first time I ran through it, she paralyzed Cloud like 3 times. And so that's completely RNG. Who she targets, who she targets. Now there's an order. There's an actual order for which order she does debuffs in. The order of debuffs is paralyzed, defense down, poison, attack down. So there's an order to debuffs, but who she targets is random, and whether they hit or not is, of course, a chance, just like a lot of debuffs in the game. It's not 100% chance. So yeah, there are RNG elements here, and if you get bad RNG, you might die and may have to restart or redo it. So just realize that's part of the game. In this particular fight, you could get unlucky, and that may be why you lost. So it may not just be your poor strategy or the particular team comp you're using. So yeah. All right. Anything else about Garland event before we go to host discussion?
Just that it seems like the best strategy here is to blitz it as well, not take your time.
As
Try
a
to go.
question, Mina, when did you summon?
Good question. I summoned. So she disables the summon once in the fight. Right after that lifted, I just summoned. Just because, I summoned, just summon, not even to finish off. I don't even know why. Like I mean, so I didn't want to like involuntarily flex or anything, but I was telling my co-host I basically did it on the blind run, so I had no idea what the mechanics were, to be honest. And I saw that it disabled the summon, and then I was like, fuck, this is like the old Ultimas, right? Where you go into the story mode and the summon's just locked out. So I should have used the summon earlier. And then I saw it lift. So I'm guessing the summon bind is temporary. As soon as I saw it lift, I was like, she might do it again. Let me just summon now. That's all I did.
She would have done it again if you did not kill her in time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she does it. She does it multiple times if you let her do it. What was your team, Mino? People are asking.
The super cookie cutter one, Warrior of Light, Cloud, Charlotta with 3/3 Cloud Friend and Shiva Summon. It only got like 4 to 5 turns. 2 of those turns was a single target light attack, which seemed like it did nothing as long as the shield blocked it. Then there was the AoE Brave plus HP attack that did very little because the shields didn't break. And then one was the Distortion Field Plus, and I had no idea what that did. Apparently, you guys are telling me it has a random chance of proccing debuffs, and I just kept spamming abilities until it was dead.
You must have gotten lucky. She targeted Warrior of Light while he had his elude up.
Maybe. Like I don't know what happened. I like I said, I ran it a second time today because when I beat it yesterday, I was like, "Am I missing something?" Like I don't know what happened, and then I learned about the distortion field, so I ran it again today, and again 0 debuffs procced on distortion field, and she only got 4 to 5 turns, and I mean, everyone's saying it's because I had the super stack team, which I believe, but I've seen other people struggle really hard with the same team as well, so I don't know. It sounds like it's a shit ton of RNG on those debuffs, is what it boils down to.
All right. Well, can we move to host discussion and questions? Do we have some questions?
I'd just like to point out quickly that if you're looking at the unique character list on Macnell's called Arms Threads, he's currently counting characters with different levels of weapon realization limit breaks as unique characters in that list, so it is a little bloated because it's counting, as I said, Fang limit broken 0 out of 3 EX plus differently from Fang 1 out of 3 and differently from Fang 2 out of 3. And we're still getting a bunch of completes being submitted where, for example, Tidus is 0 out of 3 or 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3 in many instances. And it's going to be prominent with Warrior of Light going forward. I think Macnel's going to have to think of how to deal with that so it doesn't artificially bloat the number of unique units. If you don't count different limit breaks for EX pluses as different units, the current count, I think, for Garland event is about 8 different characters, 8 unique characters being represented.
Very good.
All right, host discussions. Kreese, did you have anything in mind for the host discussion?
One thing I wanted to bring up last week, but because we were having all the issues, we decided to put it off, is this is a question that someone asked me after I got my first Chaos complete on the Heretic fight last week. Were all of my characters Crystal Strength 70 and bloomed for that Chaos fight? And I was like, well, yeah, obviously I wanted to invest as much and get as many stats and squeeze as much juice out of these characters as I could. So obviously I 70-70'd them, bloomed them all. And that brought me to the question, should we assume that all characters that we are using for these Chaos fights are Crystal Strength 70, have a Bloomstone invested in them, just to squeeze out all of the value you can for a character, if you're going to bring them to the hardest content possible right now?
Yeah, I can't imagine, given how many Bloomstones we've gotten. I mean, I know it doesn't seem like we have a lot, but I think I'm still sitting on 7 and resources to limit break all of them. I can't foresee myself bringing someone to a Chaos battle who is not 77 and bloomed fully.
Really?
Like you said, I mean, why not use the resources to give them that much extra little edge?
Interesting. The Fang Chaos fight was the very first time I ever thought AAs matter. I was failing a lot because I was like, I never used AAs, honestly. From their introduction to now, I never used AAs until the Fang fight pushed me to the limit. That Cloud's 2 AAs for the extra big Brave plus HPs made a huge difference. Charlotta's Brave Battery AA made a big difference. Still didn't use Warrior of Lights, whatever. And then in Garland's, I didn't use them either. So I'm saying I don't know how much emphasis I would put on AAs. The harder fights like Fangs really pushed me to do it, but for the majority of the other 2 of our 3 Chaos fights, I didn't touch them at all.
For all the Chaos fights I've done, I've used all of my additional abilities in all the cases. I've used Clouds, I've used Fangs, I've used Warrior of Lights. The Brave regen from the extension is not insignificant. It helps, especially once those defenses get high. And even if it isn't a lot, it's still some more Brave mitigation. And with Warrior of Light shields not being the impossible to break walls that they used to be, it helps.
I mean, there are definitely some AAs that are better than others, but again, it's not that valuable of a resource that if you're going to bring someone to a Chaos fight, yeah, why not up them? I'm not saying you cannot beat a Chaos fight. There's some people in chat here saying, I beat it with this character, not fully Crystal Strength 70, but again, they're not that rare of resources right now that if I'm going to bring somebody into a fight in Chaos, especially a main Chaos fight, I'm probably going to 70-70 them. Maybe different going into Far Ends of Dimension if there's not enough resources to do 15 characters or 20 or 30 or now 45 in Japan. May have to think twice, but for now, I am for example, I brought Sarah in and I had not 70-70'd her, and I did for that fight. So, but Cloud's AA, yes, he's amazing. Warrior of Light, you could say maybe he's not, but I do believe it's a fairly useful AA as well. Vincent's AA is real nice.
So it helps. I guess the consensus among the hosts is it really helps if you have the resources. Why not? But I'm going to throw in the dissenting voices. I don't think it's 100% necessary.
I think it's fair to say it's
for
not
the 70-70, yes. Right. I was going to say the 70-70, the characters for sure, because the big stat boost, but saving a Bloomstone for it, it really depends. I don't think it's necessary. It's like, I feel Bloomstones are the same as spheres. They can help a great deal, and why not do it if you can spare it, but there's no reason to feel forced to.
Any other questions for tonight?
Yes, Kreese?
Why are you asking me to do
Wow.
all of these? Okay, another question that came up and people were curious about is, with the tight limitations on ingots right now, what are the co-hosts' opinions on choosing favorite characters over meta characters for ingot investment? And I will start first. I chose meta over favorites, and I'm probably gonna have to stick with that for a little while until ingots free up a little bit. I would have loved to invest in Fang, but I chose Cloud because I knew going forward he will be more valuable and more useful in more circumstances. For example, I'm probably gonna go back and get the Garland complete using Cloud instead of Fang. So just gonna mention that.
Yeah, I
Uh,
have the same opinion that Kreese has. I've said that I pull EXs for favorites, so I have the full kit of the favorites. But in terms of using the ingots, that's a little bit more of a precious resource, especially at this point. And I do like to complete the content and clear the content. So I have used them on more powerful characters than on favorites. Vincent's a favorite of mine. I have his EX. I got his EX. I used him. I did book him. I'll probably book all of my favorite characters at least. But how I invest my precious, precious ingots, that is a little different of a question.
Alpha Mage wants us
Yeah,
to mention on stream
very true.
the extreme importance of AAs for controlling enemy brave and breaks,
Yep.
which is a very valuable thing. You don't have to bloom to get that extra use, right? You
The
can just
bloom gives
70/70
you
for
additional uses.
Yep.
son of a
And
whatever.
that is the
Damn
big
it.
thing. Warrior Light goes from 1 to 2
Yep.
uses. Fang goes from 1 to 3.
Oh,
Cloud goes from 1 to 2. Most characters go from 1 to 2 uses, except in very few circumstances. I think Tidus goes from 1 to 3 uses of his additional ability, and his additional ability is a Brave plus HP.
Yeah. That's huge. Some are very very good, like Cloud's AA, but a lot of others are, like we said, Warrior of Lights. I'd even argue Charlotte is not necessary. Necessary. It's good to have, but you know. But anyways, moving on to shit. What was the question? Oh, right, favorites. I don't know. Because of my alcohol intake, I only plan a month ahead at a time. So I'm not like Kreese or Mark, and I already am planning to save 3 ingots for Sabin. And apparently, he's a pile of garbage that does not exist outside of his own LC. So you know, who knows? I don't have the meta planning that Kreese and Mark have. I pull on whim. Like if it's been too long since I pulled, I will pull. I rage pulled on Fang EX. I even pulled on Garland because my own bogus eval convinced me that Garland was a good character. So uh, I think
According to the Reddit comments, you also convinced Mark to pull.
no, I didn't.
yep.
Mark is a sarcastic.
Paid.
Mark is the most tight-fisted person on this podcast. Like he has the
Pitied.
most gems out of any of us at any given time,
Full pity,
and
Garland.
and
Double pity.
he literally charts his gem usage so that he knows when he'll be spending gems within the next 3 or so months. I'm sure, guaranteed. So yeah,
I
no,
don't.
not
You're
even
you're not that far behind me in gems. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but that's because I've been getting lucky. Like,
Mm.
if I didn't get lucky, I'd be as poor as Kreese right now, probably. Kreese is like what, 1 pity?
I'm slightly under 2 pities right now. I'm at like
Oh, that's
140k gems.
pretty good for Kreese because he used to shotgun pull a lot.
Well, I'm planning to pull 2 pity, Ultimisia, and then Agrius.
Ooh.
All right, so for as a recap, I believe Kreese is our most impulsive puller, or at least he was. He used to
Oh, I'm
always
definitely
struggle to
still
be.
the most impulsive puller still compared to you two.
Yeah, he usually bounces between just under or just over 1 pity, and he likes to shotgun pull far more than Mark and I. I I have like a roadmap of metas, kind of. Like I know the next 1 or 2 metas I'm gonna pull for, and then depending on how lucky I get, excess gems goes to whatever the hell I feel like it. So for example, Uh, who trying to think of an example in Cosmos, someone I really wanted that I got fast. Oh, right. So for example, I got Warrior right at the beginning of Cosmos. I got Warrior of Light in 5k gems. I got Pain in 15k. So I went back and dumped everything into until I got Shantoto. Luckily, I got it early. Otherwise, that would have been another pity. Just be like, oh, if I'm ahead of schedule, I'm spending all that excess gems on whatever the hell I want. Free money. I'm the type of terrible person who spends the tax refund as soon as they get it. Only in this game, not in real life. That's stupid. But when it comes to fake currency, if I'm ahead of schedule, I will spend it. Mark is the most frugal out of all of us by far. He has like 50 spreadsheets. I think he planned out like 6 months worth of pulls. He's already saving for Squall's Burst.
Yep, it's true.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. He's had really bad luck, and he's sitting at like 400k gems. He's bad luck. He's sitting at 400k gems.
Yep.
And so, you know,
I think Square Enix Joshua is sitting around like 200k gems, isn't he?
Yeah,
wait, is he really?
You can see them on stream. He has a huge dash now.
Yeah. Those are paid gems. I refuse to believe Square Enix Joshua is not a hoarder. I refuse to believe he's a hoarder because he blew what 95k on Kefka's 35 CD.
Yeah, I believe so.
Right?
That was really rough. He spent a lot of gems and tickets there.
Okay, so to be fair, he only had about, I think, near 100k going into those pulls, which without pity was a gamble for sure, because back then 35s were as rare as EXs, I believe.
Yep.
And I am not wholly convinced that he saved that whole time. I am fully convinced there's some Square Enix employee gems in there.
I don't know. He doesn't seem to pull on a huge amount. He just seems to get very lucky.
Lucky in quotes, quote unquote lucky. And then, you know, after that pull, after Kefka, he went down to practically nothing. And then all of a sudden, a month or two later, his gem stash is healthy again. I refuse to believe he's not pulling it all. But to be fair, I know he
huge gem windfall in that month after Kefka, just to be fair.
Maybe. I mean, so I'm saying arguments against, he's got to have extra gems. But arguments for is that I know Josh gets access to like the dev account to test things out, so he probably gets rid of his pulling urges there and probably plays more conservative on his main account. Who knows? Whatever. We're all speculating. Everyone give your theories.
So,
all right, next question.
5D was asking, do pull strategies change given the reality of limited EX realization resources? And I think we maybe mentioned this a little bit, but I really think yes. I mean, I think I'm less likely to pull, and Mino disagrees with me, but I think personally for myself, I am less likely to pull because I know I'm not going to be able to fully utilize the full realization of those characters that I might want to use. So for me, yes, I would probably pull more in Chaos era if I had the resources to fully realize every character I had. But I know Mino disagrees with me.
I mean, I'm not avoiding EX weapons just because I don't think I'll be able to utilize them to their full potential because we're low on ingots right now. But I'm also willing to book most of the EX weapons. The only exception so far has been Tidus that I decided I had to skip because I want to book for Zell, for Leviathan, Ultimate Farming, and I need to save a book for Ultimecia in case I get her kit fast and I don't have to pity book one.
Everyone says that the limited amount of ingots is making them want to pull less. I call bullshit. First of all, I'm pretty sure most people were like me. I couldn't beat Fang Chaos the night it dropped, so I almost rage pulled just to get a duplicate, just so I could book it, just so I could ingot and 3/3 cloud. I'm almost sure that's why the EX plus an ingot system was devised. So you would rage pull to get more ingots to get that one extra push of power. I refuse to believe most people. It discourages most people to pull. Maybe the more like metagamer, logically driven, but gotcha targets the impulsive gamblers and the completionists. And I'm pretty sure I can confidently say most people will want to pull. Hell, look at how many 3/3 clouds were available day one, right? Like, unless you pulled Vincent, you had to be booking dupes, and many people admitted to
Yep,
booking dupes. So,
But we said that was a bad idea last
we
week.
did.
eh, I'm on the fence on that one. Like, it's more optimal not to book dupes, but I wouldn't blame anyone for booking dupes that they already have to get the most out of their character right away. I do believe that we have more books to spare than we think. Like, I
Yeah.
think books will be plenty, especially depending on pull luck. You might I think the vast majority of players will have a excess of books. So if they really want to book a dupe just to get an ingot or two, just to max out a favorite and use them at their full potential right away. Because in our own Discord today, we were talking about how frustrating it was not to be able to use your favorite character at your full potential. So I'm saying I don't think it's the worst idea if you want
Well,
to book a few dudes.
let me say this. Perhaps it is the reality that we know we can't fully realize all the characters we like with the knowledge that we have of who is coming up. So let me say, for example, headed into the Deuce LC, which I know is going to give most of us headaches. I believe it gave me a headache the
I'm
first time.
already planning to pass on
Yeah,
the chaos until I get better characters.
exactly. So, but here's the reality. If we did not know what was coming after Deuce LC, and we did not have the JP experience with those characters, Ultimecia for number one example, I may have been more willing to pull on that banner and try to get Ace and then limit break him if I could to use him on the event, as opposed to waiting for Ultimecia and using those resources on her. But we have the foresight knowing that she's much more powerful and much more viable moving forward, and I like her a lot better than I like Ace. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer for me, so I'm not even going to touch that event, just like Chris said, until a few days later when we get Ultimecia, and I'm going to use her and book her up and come back to that event. But if I didn't have that foresight, I may be more likely to spend to beat that banner, even though we're saying, and I think, the best advice is for 3 tickets or 6 tickets or a few hundred gems, it's probably not worth pulling for a character, especially if you don't have the ability to actually fully realize them and you don't even like them, or you're not going to enjoy using them. You can probably just pass and get the clear and go on with your life. But yeah, so good. Anything else from questions, guys, tonight? Anything else in chat? This is not a JP podcast. This is a global DFFOO podcast.
Yeah, all the people talking about the JP news, I'll talk about it after the podcast.
But yeah,
GL here, guys.
For those of you who are listening and who won't stay on for the post show on the podcast, it was just shown on Twitter. Shantoto got her burst weapon, so they did share. Well, they showed what it looked like. So.
IMO, the cooler information was that LSA finally got her weapon realization and a rework.
Yes, Alize got her rework.
It is the cooler information because I was really hoping it wasn't Shantoto next. Datamine said it was a toss-up between Vaughn and Shantoto. Really hoping it wasn't Shantoto because Shantoto is always fucking never in the spotlight because she always comes right before a huge power creep. And she's been fucked since the beginning of this game, and I'm actually extremely disappointed in the news. I even told the JP players, I was talking to some JP players, they were talking about the announcement during the stream, and I said, I hate that it was Shantoto because now she's going to suck again as one of the first bursts. And they're like, no, Shantoto's been good. And I was like, show me one time. And they looked through the history. Shantoto's never been good. When she first came out, she was not one of the better story characters. When she got her 35, you had Kane and Saw's 35s out there crushing everybody. In Cosmos era, when she got her 70/70 awakening, that was,
Wait, hold on. Does Papa Lemo have an EX weapon?
Yes,
Yeah,
and
he gets one.
JP, yeah,
Oh, he did get one?
yes.
Hmm.
It was underwhelming.
Yeah,
By
apparently, because
earlier
I
reports.
don't
Yeah,
remember it.
yeah, basically, yeah. but yeah, in the Cosmos 70 again, she was one of the first. She's always one of the first, and she got crapped all over on our, like, we got Pain, Warrior of Light. Who else was big there? Almost everyone that came after her. Then she gets her EX Plus, and that's right before the huge spiking chaos difficulty that comes with General Leal and everybody on. Like, she gets it right when she stops mattering every single time. She's barely ever seen in events she's not synergy in. Search the internet for her. Shantoto's never been used outside of her synergy because she's always been fucked over. And now she's the second burst character with 3 months to go until the rise of the new difficulty. You really think she's going to make that transition? That's a fucking joke. And that's our
And now
JP
I think we're
section.
done
That's
with the podcast.
well. Thank you all for joining us. Looking ahead, we have Ultimate Leviathan on the 17th. Deuce LC, Gentle Strength, or as I like to call it, the worst event in history of Tifo. Then on the 28th, Ultimecia, and also a surprise event, which we don't know what it is, but it may have accidentally been data mined early far ends of dimension or dimensions end, and we will talk about that when we know more about it in coming weeks. So exciting things towards the end of this month. So thank you everyone for joining us live on Twitch. I do remind you, we do record live every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central. You can always catch us later on Twitch video on demand, on YouTube, on all your favorite podcast apps, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple. If you are listening on an Apple device, I do encourage you, please go give us a review and give us a rating. Make it good. We are rated on the gaming apps or gaming podcasts on Apple, and so that does help our subscriptions and does help people get our information out there. You can also catch up with us on Facebook, Twitter, Discord. Our website is tccpodcast.com. The Crystal Chronicles, tccpodcast.com. You can find all the links to our information. I also do include the Tonberry's infographic page and also Macnell's Call to Arms. Tonberry Troop also does now have social media, so you can connect with them, as does Macnell. So you can connect to all of them. So for myself, Mark, for Mino Spellgood, and for Kreese, a.k.a. Zerink, we wish you all the best of luck as you grind into Leviathan, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.